All right, now we're going to be looking at the 7-2. 7-2 begins, 7-3. 7-3 deals with simple interest. It starts with problem number 9. Okay. All right, so these are the ones where there's two formulas that we use. The first question, number 9, is asking for the interest. So that means we're going to go to the formula sheet and get the formula I equals principal times rate times time. And then we just plug in. They're investing $11,200. Interest rate was 9.5%. So be careful. Remember, percent means to divide by 100. So that's 0.095 when you do that. You can actually take 9.5 and divide by 100 if you feel more comfortable doing that. 0.095. Now, another tricky thing on this one is the time is in months, but the interest rates are always annual unless they tell you otherwise. So that means I don't multiply by 3. I have to take the 3 months and divide it by 12 to get what part of a year that would be. So that's the setup for number 9. You can finish the rest of that. All right, with number 10, this one is wanting to know what the future value of the loan would be. That would mean what the total amount they would have to repay at the end. Now, this could also have been a deposit. So it could have been the future value of some investment where they deposited $13,400 at that 7% for 6 years. Okay, so here we don't want just the interest, we want the future value. So we could just go to the formula that gives us that, which is this one. Okay, and then in place of the P, we'd put the 13,400. In place of the R, we'd change that to a decimal. The 7% would be 0.07. Time is in years, so we just have to multiply by 6. And that's it, and we're finished. Okay. All right, now with one like 11, we're missing one of the unknowns. We're missing the time, okay? But it's just, we're thinking about what formula includes principal, rate, time, and simple interest, and that's this formula. So I can put the interest in. I can put the principal, the $23,200, in for P. I can put the 17% in for R, and I'm looking for the time. All right, so what you can do is take the 23,200, and multiply that by 0.17. Okay, so this part right here is 39.44, and that's multiplied by the T, and we know that should equal this 13,804. Okay, so if we know that, equals 13,804, we can just divide by the 39.44 on both sides to get our T by itself, using that little bit of algebra that we learned in chapter 6. Okay, so 13804 divided by 3944, and we get 3.5. So 3.5, and it would be years since the interest rate is assumed to be annual. Okay. All right, so it's years, okay? All right, now here's same type, it's just you're missing the P. So you know that the P times the 0.085 times the 3.5 should equal the interest. So it's the same idea, it's just the unknown was the P. So what you can do there is you can work that out and then divide both sides by whatever that turns out to be, and you'll have your P left. So that means what you're doing is you're figuring out how much you would have to invest today so that you would earn $1,963.50 in interest after 3.5 years. So it's a question that actually you might be interested sometime in figuring out. All right, now I'm going to go on set up these two. So Banker's rule is just where you interpret a year to be 360 days rather than 365. That's all you do on that. But if you're just looking for interest, it's still the I equal PRT formula. And 270 days needs to be converted to years. So you take the 270 divided by 360. You multiply that out and that's your answer. Okay. All right, now this one right here, number 14, a discounted loan. Okay, that one, the discount, what's happening here is they're going to take out the interest from how much you're trying to borrow. So you won't actually receive $4,650. So what you're going to do first, part A, to get the discount, that's really just I equal PRT. So you're going to plug in the 4,650, multiply that by the 0.075, multiply that by 5, and you're going to find out how much interest you would need. So I need to calculate that. So that's 4,650 times 0.075 times the 5. So that's going to be $1,743.75. So you don't actually get that 4,650. The amount received is going to be, they're going to take out the interest first, so it's going to be the 4,650 minus that. Okay, minus the 1,743.75, and that's the $2,906.25. Okay, and then for C, what that means is you didn't really have $4,650 to make use of. Okay, you really only got a little less than $3,000. So we're going to calculate what the interest really turned out to be. It's like that you really only received, instead of the P really being 4,650, you only made use of this much money. So we're going to use that for the amount borrowed. Still the 5 years, but we're going to see what the interest rate really would be. Okay, because we really only made use of that much money. We paid that much in interest though. So I'm going to plug in that $1,743.75 for my interest, but the amount I really get to use is only $2,906. So I'm going to do that calculation, which means I need to take the 2,906, I'm going to take it times 5. So that's 14,531.25 times the R. So now I'm going to divide by, so R would equal the 1743.75 divided by that 14,531.25. All right, so when I do that, that's going to give me a decimal that I'll then change into a percent. So that's going to be, let's see, 1.25. Okay, so that turns out to be 0.12. All right, so this was the 1743.75. That was the interest you paid. This is the amount you actually received that you could use. So you were taking out a loan so you could use it for something. You really only got to use, where is it? Okay, the $2,906.25. Okay, and when we go and we think about, well, if you only really got to use that, but you paid that much interest, and you, for 5 years is how long you kept the money, then that's going to be 12%, really. Not the 7.5%. That's the nominal rate.